For more on this story, we're now joined by Ms. Yandisa Sokanyile, the Chief Digital Officer of Connecta, and the Honorable Daniel Kojo from NAILEC in Ghana. Thank you for joining me on the show.
It's my pleasure.
Thank you very much.
Africa is urbanizing at a very rapid rate. I understand it's probably the second quickest rate of urbanization in the world, behind Asia. That presents, some positive factors. For instance, the opportunity to industrialize and to set up services industries. But at the same time, it also comes with some challenges. The rapid rate of urbanization presents infrastructure challenges, for instance. We're seeing the proliferation of slums because of the rate at which people come into cities. How do we manage that? Starting with you, Honorable.
Thank you so much. I think that we can only manage this situation when we are able to create a conducive atmosphere within the rural setup.
Right.
So that people can stay around and work in the rural areas instead of drifting from the rural areas into the urban cities to look for white-collar jobs which are not in existence.
Yeah, but at the same time, there are positives on there in urbanization. For instance, the possibility of industrializing and moving people from low-value agricultural jobs to higher-value industrial jobs. So we've got to balance the two, don't we?
Yes, the issue is that before we can balance that equation, we should be able to ensure that infrastructure that are within the urban cities or the urban areas are also available or applicable for people to, lean on to be able to achieve their goals at the end of the day. And that will prevent people from coming from the rural areas into the urban areas for white-collar jobs.
One of the issues, of course, with urbanization and turning to you, Yandisa, is that one of the key attributes of a city that makes it attractive from a development point of view is the fact that it connects people. You're able to bring value chains closer to each other. But in some instances, our cities have shortages of infrastructure. So roads, for instance, are maybe more difficult to put together because they cost more, they take longer to construct, etc., etc. So one of the ways to try and accelerate connectivity is ICT.
Definitely. We are in the era of the fourth industrial revolution right now. ICT is transforming our lives. It's transforming how we're doing business, how government engages with communities, how services are being delivered. Now, if we can look at the rural communities, you find that rural communities don't have as much access to ICT infrastructure as much as we do in the urban cities. Now, you find a lot of people, hence you're having the influx of people moving to the urban cities. Now, with the introduction of ICT in the rural or in the smaller towns, you can actually limit the need for people to come out to the urban cities and be causing influx this side, whereby you can present or bring the services to them in the rural communities. Because also, if you look in the communities there's a lot of talent, there's a lot of skill, there's a lot of raw talent. But because of the lack of facilities and opportunities, so people in the smaller municipalities or areas, they tend to be overlooked. Not that they don't have the capacity to do with good training and with access to opportunities and the infrastructure, you can actually develop the rural communities so that we don't have this influx of people now coming. Now you have this housing problem that we're having in the urban areas. So these are things that can actually be prevented. Also, if you look at the ICT sector, I always say how it's changing. You don't actually need to go to a physical office and be there. With the use of internet, you can be able to offer and render services to any community or any clients anywhere in the world. So also, if we can change the way we look at how we do things, looking at our employment, our education systems, and actually see that ICT is going to be critical, and it is critical for the development of any economy, especially here in Africa.
Well, and one of the things, of course, with ICT is that from the perspective of competitiveness, whether it's a city or a state or a region or a country or even the continent as a whole, the less ICT enabled you are, the less economically competitive you are, because you're not as able to provide services as efficiently, as cost effectively as you otherwise would, one. But one of the other things that happens is that as we move further and further into the fourth industrial revolution, a lot more things and activities are ICT enabled. So if you're trapped, as it were, in an older world, then you're less able to compete going forward.
Exactly. So the most interesting part is that ICT is actually crossing over to all the different aspects of the economy. You look at different sectors, your agriculture, your energy, it is education, it is even the governance. It is all integrated into ICT. How government now collects information. So it has made and is enabling government. It's not just for citizens or for community. I see government just deploy the Wi-Fi networks. Let's get the community connected. Let's put Wi-Fi and give them free Wi-Fi access. But the most beneficial entity that can benefit from this is also government, where they can use this. We are in the era of IoT, which is Internet of Things, connecting every sector and then integrating all of that to one pool that can give you data and analytics about your city, about your citizens, so that you are able to make informed decisions in terms of your planning. Now imagine if you have your transport sector connected, where you know which routes people take. You are able to plan better. Which roads can we actually develop? Which hubs, bus stations, taxi ranks can we actually develop based on the information that you have right there at hand? So if we can look at government looks at ICT as part of the integral planning, when they do their budgets, to know that we can put ICT also as part of that, not just as a byproduct that you offer as a municipality or with government, but as an infrastructure development project that can actually benefit the municipalities and even the governments. So I think if we can start looking at that and not always be waiting for Europe or US to come and save us, we can actually do so much as Africans, because essentially we are the ones that are going to solve our African problems. We know better. We know what services we need. We know what technologies we need, what apps that can help us, because we're living in this life. So we know exactly what is needed to drive our economy forward.
And Daniel, then one of the challenges, of course, with our cities is that, I mean, historically, and that's pretty much across the continent, South Africa specifically suffered from apartheid spatial planning, which relegated the people that need connectivity the most to the outlying areas of cities. So they incur huge costs, transportation costs, in getting to the places they need to where jobs are located. Across the rest of the African continent, because of the urbanization, perhaps the rollout of infrastructure didn't happen as quickly as the migration of people into the cities. So as a result, we've got these infrastructure problems. Then one of the issues that arises is, how do we fund the rollout of infrastructure to meet the needs that we have now and going forward?
Yeah, the issue of this is that we need infrastructures in the rural areas. For instance, if it comes to transportation, in my country, for instance, there's this buses available for people to move from one area to another.
Right.
And if the housing deficit too is very good, it makes people having a good living standard to be able to stay at a cheaper housing system, to be able to move freely from one stage to another. And that's, if we make all those deficits available for our society, it will make Africa to be one of the lovely place to be.
And of course, I mean, we also have to look at integrating private sector funding into the rollout and development of infrastructure as well, correct?
Yeah.
I mean, public-private partnerships, as an example, would be one of the modes of developing infrastructure.
Yes, PPP is one of the best strategies every country could adopt, because at the end of the day, government brings something, private sector brings something, and jointly and severally they are able to emerge at a point to be able to develop our economy.
And how ready are we? Because one of the critical ingredients for public-private partnerships is the comfort the private sector investors need in terms of governance and protection of their investments. How secure are these investments across the African continent? I mean, I know there are variations depending on which country you're in.
Technically, it's feasible. In some countries, for instance, if there's PPP among companies and government, they are being secured because government is having hands in it, private sector is also having hands in it. Both of them will be supervisors of each other so that the investment put in there will be secured. So it is very critical. PPP, I think that it is good for every country to practice PPP. In some cases, there's what we call BOT, that is build, operate, and transfer.
Right.
Okay, that is also another good system. Countries that don't have the ability to be able to get investors to come, and in a point in time they're able to get it, they should be able to allow the investor to put his or her money in there.
Yeah.
And after the period of, operation, let's say 5 to 10 years or 20 years, they should be able to recoup their money and transfer back to the assembly, for instance, to handle it. In most cases, the assemblies practice that as well. Yeah. This is also happening in my country as well.
Recently, the African Free Trade Agreement has been put into place, Yandisa. I mean, and it's quite a milestone for Africa because it's taken forever to do something that you would think at the back of your mind we should have done a long time ago. But what it does, of course, is that it looks to integrate African countries more as a single market for development of industries. What do you think the prospects are, or coming out of that in terms of development of African countries and cities?
Okay, it's actually what was supposed to have been done a long time ago. Look at what other challenges also that we just had with the conference. Some of the delegates could not make it because of the visa issues.
Yes.
So when you still have those problems where people want to come and they can't get visas to get into an African country. So you still look back and think, wow, this is like, how are we going to grow? How are we going to develop? So one thing we need to look at is to break these borders that we have created.
Yeah.
Because for us here in South Africa, it's really difficult for small companies or anybody to just go into Africa and trade, because the mindset has always been that, I think because of these borders that we have actually created. So we sort of do our business here, and you look at it, there's so many opportunities that we can tap into in different countries. And what Alged has actually brought to us, having people from Ghana, from Botswana, the conversations that we actually had today were quite interesting. And you realize, you know what, we're actually missing out on a lot of opportunities because we have had these borders that we have actually created ourselves, and say we cannot even go out there. And even that comes the mindset issue, that we need to change our mindset about us as Africans and not have the segmentation mentally that says, I can't go to this country, or, you just think it's even not possible to even go there. But once you start seeing Africa as one continent, as brothers and sisters, and places that is open for business, because essentially bigger companies are there. You've got all these majors playing there. Why can't we go as medium businesses or smaller businesses and go and tap in there?
No.
Additionally, I think that Africa, we have something in common.
Yeah.
You understand? We have something in common, and there's the need for us to open up. For instance, if investors want to come to Africa to invest, it is our own people that expel them out.
Yeah.
They do not give or create a conducive atmosphere where they can have the enabling environment to come and invest. That has also been the hindrance for retiring Africans' growth and development. And also, there's another issue which is on the table now.
I'm going to have to cut off the interview. Unfortunately, we've run out of time. I must apologize. I think what we should try and do next time is make more time to discuss this important issue a little bit further. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
And we've come to the end of the program Prime Business for tonight. Join us again the same time tomorrow, 8 o'clock. From me, Harold Bupalamo. Have a good night.